I'm Mayor Catherine Glaze, and we are going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:31 on October the 19th. And Mayor, I'm going to call roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Villalobos. Councilmember Bunker.
Here.
Councilmember Shell Allen, I believe is absent.
Yes.
Councilmember McLeod.
Here.
Councilmember Clinton.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Glaze. Okay, if you'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then to the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And then if you would remain standing before the
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we are just so grateful to you for stopping the flood waters last Thursday. Thank you, Lord God, for the water, and thank you for stopping the water. Heavenly Father, we just ask for your guidance as we go forth in our governance of the city. We just ask for your hand upon each and every one. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, do we have any public comments? Did anybody in the audience want to speak?
No, it's signed up.
No one said no. Okay. So I just was going to say a little bit about the flood last Thursday. It was kind of a surprise because we'd been waiting for it to rain all week. And then, of course, we did get a lot of flood waters, and we ended up closing several bridges in town. Of course, the one by the water department, that's very low, and that's not unusual for that to be closed, or for the Skull Bridge. But we also had to close 1979, not because the water went over it, but it kind of went around the bridge. And it was deep enough that if a car would have tried to go across the bridge, it would have been swept off. The constables actually had to give a few tickets because people kept trying to run past the barricades. So of course we got a lot of potholes from that. And we've had our handyman, Tommy Fudge, out filling as many as possible with some asphalt that we keep in the back here in sacks. And he's going to be doing some more next week as things dry out. So there are more streets probably to be repaired. There's two streets that are considered on private property. So they're public roads on private property. And that's the one, Johnson Street, going down across that bridge. That will have to be repaired. And then the one back here will have to catch some potholes and stuff. So if there's any questions, we'll try and answer them.
I'll make one comment, two
Okay.
comments. That's the highest the river's been since 2015.
I know.
That was a substantial flood, but not to the magnitude of the 15 flood.
Oh, yeah, by a long shot.
And you're gonna talk about the overlay on Lockhart?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I did talk to Donald, the road maintenance supervisor. We're still scheduled to have the overlay performed in November, just next month, depending on the weather variables, but we're still scheduled. So there you go.
So let me touch a little bit on what's been happening today. So Mike all month has been working with this town and has a piece of property he'd like to sell, and we, the city, would like to buy. But it's got a title or a deed that's really not clear. And so we've been working with title company and everything to try and get that unencumbered. And we'll continue to try and work on it, but the gentleman wasn't very happy today, so we had some excitement.
You look up all those, that big work that you found was.
We've been looking at lots of people. And I just want to thank Mike for working with this gentleman because he's real hard of hearing. He can't hear very well, but both of them talk pretty loud, so it works out. So thank you, Mike.
Well, we're, basically they have to do, I guess there's no title at this point. So
Yeah.
there's ways around that, but you have to get attorneys involved at this point. Okay.
I'll say something about the emergency siren that I knew about that's on the Martindale Water Supply Water Tower. And it is linked to Caldwell County Emergency, what is it, Troy?
Their emergency management.
Yeah. And so and it's not just for floods, it could be for other types of emergencies or crises. And so we'll probably try and investigate that and find out at what level height, well, they'll turn on the siren when they feel it's a major flood coming our way, say if the Blanco, well, it was very large the other day, but if it goes into the San Marcos River, then if it reaches a certain level, then the siren would go off. So we'll try and find out more about that. And phase one, part of the park did get flooded, but there isn't much debris there. So we spared major debris being on these riverway properties. I mean, the river went up, but didn't seem to be a lot of debris that was carried with it. It was mostly just moving down in the narrower part of the river and then just proceeded to go farther past our town.
Had the limestone block, the butter sticks.
The limestone blocks are in place. The garbage cans in phase one that are bolted down, those are in place. But for somehow the plastic garbage cans came out of the cages, so they have to be replaced. And there's turtles all over the place walking around, lost. I'd probably put about 3 or 4 back in the river. So if you see a turtle, turn it around. That's all I have. Thank you.
And then you see a lot of cans, you see a lot of cans.
Cans that are washed up, embedded in the dirt. Yes.
So the Caldwell County Emergency System is pretty amazing. I mean, they were out at the Skull Bridge, like, I don't know, 3, 4 in the morning, making sure that nobody got across there. So I was very impressed with that whole system. Okay, Jared.
All right, that was a good discussion. There's a couple updates, working on pre-development agreement conversations. As we've talked about previously, developer Lanzola has talked with the city in the past. We gave them some action items to look over and come back with some more information. Haven't heard anything from them in a number of months. They reached back out last week, and it seems they have a new advisor consultant that's working with them. And so those conversations probably want to start up here in the next couple of weeks. I did get contacted by a company who was intending to purchase or develop at least a portion of the Turner Crest property that's located north of the wastewater treatment plant. Their primary focus is doing a solar power plant for wholesale power sales. And I haven't seen anything come back from them. I know they're working on their agreements as a wholesaler with Blue Bonnet and others who may purchase that power before they close. But
What they're building a plant.
potentially, it's something that
Or farm.
plant farm. I'm not sure what the right semantics on that are, but basically think of a bunch of solar panels in a field charging up batteries, and
Yeah.
then when the price is right, drain the batteries and sell it off to Blue
Oh,
Bonnet
so
and the rest.
it's not going into the grid? Or-
It's connected to the grid at some point. We'll figure out all the details when the development agreement comes in, but I want to let you know that that's one of the ones we're working on.
Is that the person that we thought had bought it before? Is that the person that's trying to do this?
We had heard rumors that Turner Crest property was going to be developed. No one had reached out to us until the Greater San Marcos Partnership let us know that they want to get us in touch with somebody who was interested in developing that land, since it's in our ETJ. Apparently, they had been working on that project for about 2 years with that developer or that interest in finding suitable sites within Hayes County, Caldwell County, and they landed on this Turner Crest as being a potential. I'm not sure the status of the sale or anything like that yet, but it's likely will flow into a development agreement. On the issue of the Greater San Marcos Partnership, the fact that they're working on us for something 2 years is happening in our backyard, and we didn't have a good insight on that. Led me to request a meeting with their executive director, general manager, the head person over there, and his staff. We had lunch with them yesterday. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Let's make sure we're not getting surprised anymore. And they offered to come in and do a presentation for the city council on what work they're doing, where they see the future going, and what opportunities there may be for Martindale to get a little more integrated in that process beyond just the coverage that we get from the county.
Quick question, do we know if Conrad closed on that property? Did they acquire that property or do we?
I don't know.
Because I'm still seeing Conrad moving equipment. I've seen him moving stuff. I was curious.
I don't know the exact status.
Okay.
So if we're holding, they had availability, the Greater San Marcos Partnership had availability to come in on November 2nd if we keep that meeting date. And we can put them on the agenda if we want. I think it'd be a good conversation to have, at least to be aware what work they're doing and what requirements might there be to be better integrated in their work. Other thing I want to touch on is billing for the utilities, wastewater. We have received a number of complaints and inquiries between yesterday and again today regarding utility billing amounts. We're aware that a significant number of people saw their usage rate classification raised substantially. And so we're continuing to take those inquiries and we'll follow up with the Water Supply Corporation. Just for the city council's awareness, how this works is the months of December, January, and February, we get the water usage. We take the average of that water usage, and that puts you in a category of customer for that we apply that usage to the rates. So the increase that a lot of people saw was not necessarily due to the rates increase. It was due to the consumption increase. And I'll be working with the Water Supply Corporation to see if maybe the winter storm had any impact on that, if there were, broken pipes and it might be, depending on what we find out, there might be, bring it to city council to consider, adding another month into the average, throwing out February, just going out with two months or some other thing that if there are large discrepancies between, December, January, and then February, there's a spike that's throwing off the average or vice versa.
Steve assured me that the winter storm was not included in the months he gave us.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, we'll have a recommendation on going forward. That recommendation may be not do nothing because, that's, they use what they used. And if they have a dispute on their usage, they can take a Water Supply Corporation, or it could be, maybe.
Do we take the previous year?
We could look at doing something like that. If it seems to be across our entire customer base. Or at least a large portion. Yeah.
Do you think any of it had to do with the increase in bill?
The increase in bill, not to the level that we're seeing.
But they were complaining mainly about the rates, not that their bill was high.
No, they're complaining that their bill was higher. They're wondering what happened. In nearly all cases, from my understanding, it was because they went from a, maybe a 3,000 gallon a year user or a month user to like a 7,000 gallon. And there are substantial increases, a number of substantial increases that we saw. That, I mean, at that,
Every year.
yeah, it happens every year. We
We
get
just have to work through.
a few surprises. It seemed to be more surprises this year than normal. Yeah. So want to make you aware of that. And then other thing that working on is had a demonstration the other day on upgrading our accounting software. We use QuickBooks. There's a company out there that adds additional functionality to QuickBooks, basically to convert it from a small business software program to a small local government software program, just to account for those uniquenesses and differences, and has improved utility billing functionality. And so we received a quote from them. We're still working on what that's going to look like, but that might be something that we'll see on a future agenda item. That's all I have.
Okay, I kind of caught Chief Ward off guard. He didn't realize we had a meeting tonight, but he is online. Do you have anything to say, Chief Ward? Can he say something?
He's on mute now. Let me see if he can unmute himself.
Can you unmute your,
Yes, I'm
there
on.
you there you
Yeah.
are.
Good evening, and my apologies. I did not realize, I thought it was the first Tuesday of every month. So I'm here. I got some good news. We got TCLEDs up and running last night. I've been working with CoLogic to get CopSync back up and running. So we got that going. So those are just some things that we have going that are prepared. We got the new car in. If you see it out back, we're just waiting on the registration so we can get it registered and out on the streets.
Sounds good. Does anybody have any questions?
I wanted to ask about the shooting.
Okay.
I want to know the circumstances about the shooting that happened.
Okay, that's an open case and the sheriff's office is investigating that. And we couldn't really discuss those circumstances in a public forum.
So Cabo County Sheriff's Office is handling that investigation. It's not the Martindale Police Department.
That's correct.
Okay.
But we can say where it was, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it was at Hobson Ranch.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief
Yes,
Ward.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, financial report, Dwayne.
Hey, you should have copies. I just noticed that the copies I sent to Jared, I didn't press send on the email.
I'll pull them up quickly.
But you've got them now. I apologize. But you want to start with your paper copies. See the bank balances on the first page. You see our various funds here. General fund, 58,000. That's a little inflated because there's money for a police car in there. The check hadn't cleared yet. Street and road fund, court restricted fund, police restricted, utility and utility deposit funds. And then the grant money in the community development fund, total $293,000 at First Lockhart Bank. He has it up here on the screen now. The text pool accounts, down a little further, you see the emergency fund at 222,000. And then you see the PFIA fund. Here, you've got the general fund overflow. Have not touched that so far this new fiscal year. You see the hotel tax is up to 42,000, received another 4,000 today. That's not over to that fund yet. Restricted child safety, utilities, $240,000 in the PFIA. The next one is the long-term capital fund. You see the reserve for the patrol car was moved out of there. So now we have $95,000 remaining in that fund. The reserve for the patrol car and then the additional amount out of the line above. We had 12,000 in that reserve, and then we had to put another $36,000 with it. Purchase the car. Then you see the amount due to the comptroller here for the fines, 333,000. The next page has our general fund budget report. This is for last fiscal year. This is the final report for last fiscal year. And the auditors are scheduled to come begin auditing these numbers next week. You see, we brought in $565,000 in the general fund, budgeted 544, so we ended up 21,000 ahead of plan. You see, we were down significantly in municipal court revenue, up significantly in sales tax revenue. But we did bring in at least the amount of the budgeted funds for the year. And one thing I want to point out, that one line, legal restitution, we did get in, remember that line was zero, we got in a whole year's worth of money the other day. So that's why now there's $300 there. It appeared that the county has had the money, and I don't know, maybe someone was listening when y'all started asking questions. I don't know. But next section is personnel. You see, if you look at the percentages over to the right, you see a couple of line items are over. The PWC, that's like unemployment rate is higher than we had planned. Pension's a little bit higher than we planned. But overall, only 82% of the budget after being netted. You see that $48,000 credit, that's a reimbursement from the coronavirus relief fund for policing expenses during the fiscal year. You see the payroll reimbursement from the utility. That's how much the utility fund contributed to the cost of the clerks at the front desk. And then we have all of these other normal operating expenses. City, very few of them are over budget. And in total, under budget, $8,463. You also see the overhead reimbursement from the utility fund of $50,000. That nets against those expenses there. And that ordinary income. And that's one of the things that Jared and I talked with this software firm about yesterday. None of these terms really apply to a city, to a government. You don't have net income, for example, in a city government. The terms are all different, but these are set up. This software is set up as if we were the local grocery store or something like that. So that's the kind of thing that can be cleared up, is these terms. The next major section is contractual services, things that we pay outsiders to do. And majority of those are under budget. Largest one over budget is the building inspection fees, and that has to do with this large project across the street. Those fees were recouped. The bottom of the page, you see capital outlay. That was in the budget. Funds that we did not outlay for capital expenditures last year. In the end, the income exceeded expenses by $93,000 for the year. So good year. If having money left over is what you want.
Oh, it's always good. Yeah.
So the next tab would be the accounts payable activity for last month. Or we can look at the utility fund. The utility fund had income $314,000 versus a budget of $307,000. So that income came in better than planned. You see the expenses just below that. The expenses were a little bit over budget. And largest being solid waste expense. That seems a little fishy to me. I may look at that one more time because that bill is very predictable and it's about $14,000 a month. So it looks like maybe we have 13 months in there.
Yeah.
So, but even with that, the net ordinary income is.
So where is that?
That's right, yeah, that line 7080. See how that is, 172,000 versus a budget of 157?
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll have to double check that. We might have had one at the beginning of the year that belonged to the prior year or something.
Oh.
Because I know I just put the one for the end of September in, it just came yesterday. So, anyway, there's a net income over expense in the utility fund as well, for the year. Then we could, should have a report. Okay, here's
Sorry. This one,
here's
the big one.
Community Development Fund. These are grant funds we received last year, $208,000. We only expended $55,000 of them. The $152,000 that's left is the latest grant that we received, 50% of approximately $300,000 that we have not expended yet. Infrastructure type projects that we're talking about for the future. Okay, what else do we have? So these are checks that were written out of the general fund last month. I want to just kind of scroll through those. Some bills. So that's that little listing. Utilities, here's the expenses for those. We'll look at next. Special revenue fund should be up there. $41,000. See, in special revenue funds, we spent 19,000. So that one, the income exceeded the expense by 21,000. The big transfer in is from setting up these funds. That's what was there to begin with at the beginning of the year. This is a new report this year. That's why that transfer in is listed there.
So whatever didn't get spent rolls over?
Yeah.
And where, that's shown where?
Well,
Just in the total?
it's not shown in these reports.
Yeah.
It just happens to show on this one because I started that report this year, but
Mhm.
to see how it rolls forward, we have to get to the official report from the auditors at the end of their report. Okay, any others? Are those all the financial reports?
That's it. Do we have the consent later?
Yeah, just account payable. And that's that. And I'll get this turned over to the auditors, short order, and they'll get to work on their part.
Thank you, Dwayne.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to consent items. The minutes that were tabled from last 2 weeks ago. I hope everybody's had time to read them. And then account payable.
Real quick, what about the court report? Oh, it's not right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I acknowledge that. Judge Fusco could not be here. He sent an email earlier this afternoon that he was not able to come.
Can't even go on Zoom or anything? I just have.
No, some sort of emergency.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all.
The motion to approve the minutes and accounts payable.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of passing these, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to 7A to approve the revisions to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 31, city officers and employees, including duties of the chief of police, city administrator, and possibly others.
So, this is a draft of a proposed ordinance. Ken, if there's anything that we need to make changes to, we can make that. Based on the discussion we had back on September 21st, this reflects those changes, and the only changes that were included are those relating to the chief of police and the city administrator. Now, Mayor, I know you had a thought about possibly expanding upon just the powers and duties of those two municipal officer positions and possibly looking at some personnel policy stuff. So if we want to include those changes and in this for future, we can probably discuss it now and then table the vote on this ordinance till later. And we can include those on the ordinance or however the council wants to move.
My question was, how specific should the ordinance be? What should be in a policy manual? I have been looking at the manual for the policy manual for the police department, which was written in 2007. So it probably needs a little bit of updating. The manual for here in the office for the other employees, I know Mayor Davini had been working on it. I saw a working copy that both Mayor Smith and Mayor Davini had been working on. So I don't know if we want to think about that, if anybody's interested in working on a policy manual, or if what you're looking at is fine.
Yeah, so the area where it may make sense to put it in ordinance in addition to a policy manual would be things like leave thresholds or maximum amounts that are allowed to be carried over any fiscal year, calendar year, or any pay period that, some cap on leave, cap on comp time, those sort of items. We don't necessarily need to put on there, here's how you submit a leave request. That's kind of a policy manual.
Yeah, that's a policy.
But as a ordinance, as a regulation for the administration of the city employees, if the city council wanted to put caps on leave, things like that, we could.
We possibly maybe,
Overtime for police officers. I'm sorry.
could we possibly review that manual, make some notes? Something?
So as the mayor kind of alluded to, there's a manual that was in existence within the police department. There's a version of the personnel manual that exists. It's been presented to prior councils before, revisions were made. The version control is somewhat loose. So at some point, we probably need to rectify what version are we using. This could be an opportunity to do that. So to answer clearly, can I have a copy of a manual? I'll probably give you a copy of the manuals.
All three of them.
Yeah, at least two, possibly three, maybe there's four. And so you can see what's kind of listed in there. But it addresses some of those things like maximum amount of leave and things, but that might be where you could put those policies in the ordinance. Yeah.
So I could see like, if we would have that, like if we had a big, huge police department, but like, I think with everything that was gonna be stated, I think what we went over in the ordinance would suffice. I don't see why we couldn't approve this, then if we wanted to look at other positions, and we would always be able to update it at any time. And then I think whatever we would have, like in a manual, could easily be added into to their contract. That way, the verbiage isn't being lost between a policy and a contract, because you could basically do everything in one document.
Yeah.
And it would simplify it.
Makes sense.
I had a question here about the powers and duties of the chief of police. The last sentence here is additionally, the chief of police shall serve as the city animal control officer and code enforcement officer. What additional training or supplies will our police need in order to be a city animal control officer? I know we were trying to work on an interlocal agreement with the county. I know occasionally if we do have problems with animals that the county does assist us, but to be an animal control officer, that might require additional training or cages or supplies. And then I also thought with the code enforcement, also linking with the ordinances, that we were trying to get an additional staff to do the code enforcement. What was the title of the other position we were trying to apply?
We're looking at having a building and planning director.
And so would the building and planning director be the code enforcement officer, or are you saying now that the police would?
So that language, that first paragraph is unchanged from the 2018 ordinance. All that was added to this was the general duty descriptions regarding animal control officers and code enforcement officers. Those, if they're going to be officially licensed person performing those duties, there are certain requirements that they have. I do not believe the intent of this language is to have the chief of police be licensed as an animal control officer or be licensed as a code enforcement officer. It's in relation to the duties of, if there's a stray dog, pick it up or call it in. If there's if it's safe, it might not always be safe to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a code issue that's related to our public nuisance ordinance, dilapidated buildings or something to that effect, they would, junk cars, junk vehicles, that they would be able to write a citation or handle that process.
So the fine line that you walk on this stuff is there is legally what you refer to as a open quote code enforcement officer, close quote, and also an open quote animal control officer, close quote. Having those legally defined positions under the law and then having someone perform the functions of those jobs are two very different things. Jared or the mayor in their positions with the city could enforce the code of ordinances without being a code enforcement officer. They simply cannot refer to themselves as code enforcement officers or animal control officers unless they take the requisite classes, training, pass required tests. But if they don't call themselves those specific things, they can still do anything and everything that those positions would otherwise do. So, animal control issue. If there's a dog running down the street, law enforcement officer has the authority to corral that animal to ensure public health and safety, return it to its owner, and then cite that owner for a violation of state law or the city's code of ordinances. I think there's a very deliberate attempt to not use the terms code enforcement officer and animal control officer, but also giving the obligations to the police chief, either chief individually or whoever he delegates that duty to within his department, to say, hey, there's a nuisance, a noise nuisance violation of code of ordinances taking place at Fillmore Northwest River Road. Okay, good, we're gonna go down and issue a citation. Or there's a pack of loose dogs, go get them corralled and issue a citation. That's what it's enabling them to do.
But isn't having the word officer the difference? I mean, what if you took the word officer out of both of those responsibilities? Because as you're saying, they're not really.
Which
the
one,
officer.
which section?
That last sentence, if they just said shall serve as city animal
Oh,
control
I was looking
and
at,
code enforcement, if you took the word officer out, then they wouldn't be the officer.
I was looking here at subsection 12, it says perform code enforcement and animal control
Oh, yeah,
functions.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the first paragraph on the first.
And
We could strike that last
There's
sentence.
no changes on it.
Additionally, the chief of police shall, I think we need to take out that last sentence and then just proceed with what it says on subsection 12 below.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that seems better to me.
Also, Chief Ward had a comment, change TCLEOSE to TCLO, TCOLE. TCOLE,
ECL.
TCOLE.
It's like T-Cole, right?
All right.
And I just want to make
Oh, yeah.
a comment that,
L-E, an extra E at the end.
whoops. TCOLE.
Didn't drop the SE. Okay, they might have just changed their name between when.
Okay, and I just want to make a comment, when I mentioned the previous mayors, I was not criticizing anyone. I'm continuing the work that they were doing.
It didn't sound.
Okay,
It didn't.
I have a comment on the mayor. 31.01, where it says the mayor shall inspect the conduct of each subordinate municipal officer and shall cause any neglect, carelessness, or other violation of duty to be prosecuted and punished.
You talking about the rest of the chapter 31?
That's 31.01, that's the mayor's powers and duties. I think shouldn't the council kind of be involved with that?
That's directly from the local government code.
Oh, we can't, okay.
That's state law. That's
State law.
Yep,
That's, okay.
right there. Those two
So
sentences.
that's for the whole paragraph, or just, I mean, on the,
Let me forward that.
because it says the mayor shall, I see the mayor shall proceed all meetings. Does that pertain to that one sentence or the whole paragraph?
Give me 1 second, I'll give you the exact.
The mayor,
it's in this one.
the mayor,
Oh, together on this one, okay.
22042. The mayor is the chief executive officer of the municipality. The mayor shall at all times actively ensure the laws and ordinances of the municipality are properly carried out. The mayor shall perform the duties and exercise the powers prescribed by the governing body of the municipality. The mayor shall inspect the conduct of each subordinate municipal officer and shall cause any negligence, carelessness, or other violation of duty to be prosecuted and punished. Mayor shall give the governing body any information and shall recommend to the governing body any measure that relates to improving the finances, police, health, security, cleanliness, comfort, ornament, or good government of the municipality. Mayor may administer oaths of office, and in the event of a riot or unlawful assembly or to preserve the peace and good order in the municipality, the mayor may order and enforce the closing of the theater, ballroom, or other place of recreation or entertainment, or a public room or building, and may order the arrest of a person who violates a state law or a municipal ordinance in the presence of the mayor. That is how
Okay, and that's how it's
2202
quoted
is.
here.
Yes.
the governing body would be the council?
The body is the council.
Okay.
So right now, are we mainly discussing what's in red?
Yeah, so,
Those are
so
changes,
in the packet, you have the ordinance that we have, which modifies the powers and duties of chief of police and the powers and duties of the city administrator. The other document is showing you the rest of chapter 31 and with the red line changes that are reflected in the proposed ordinance. So if you will, the full complete chapter 31 is what it's going to look like, but for the purposes of approving and adopting an ordinance, it's just these two items that are needed.
These two items, again,
Are the powers and duties of the municipal administrator and of the chief of police.
for the administrator, I saw something. Are we finished discussing the police? All right, let's see, under general duties, I guess, section 5. To complete all tasks generally assigned to the city manager and working closely with you changed it all to municipal clerk and municipal accountant. Shouldn't that be treasurer? Because I was looking over here at the officers on the first page, and it lists the officer, the municipal treasurer. I assume that's the accountant, official municipal treasurer for your account. Is that right? Do we need to specify it? We know it's one.
So in the rest of the chapter 31, when it describes, we can change if we want, if it makes it
Yeah,
cleaner,
that-
but it also, it has a statement here that may also be referred to as a municipal accountant.
Because you have municipal attorney, municipal judge, municipal engineer, chief of police, and then other staff. You don't have the secretary on here either. Do you?
It's under records.
Oh, okay. Under record, oh, okay. Where's that?
It
Was
was,
that a change?
no, there's
That
no
wasn't a
change to
okay.
that. But I think like, just, for the purpose of right now, we were going to receive these documents, which were edited at the last meeting for the revisions, and then, like, right now, it's to approve those, revisions.
Mhm.
And then if we wanted to look at anything else further, then we could.
Yeah.
But at any time, if you wanted to, we could still.
Yeah, we can still change this in the future.
You can change it every month if you want.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, to accept, you're right. Yeah, where were we at? We were, okay, I'm gonna make it, to approve the revisions to the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 31, city officers and employees, including the duties of the chief of police and city administrator as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Real quick,
Yeah.
We're not finished with
yes, not finished, but we've already made some changes and this was in the packet. So I think it needs to be, like you mentioned, tabled until the next meeting because we're gonna be.
Striking this line
We're gonna be striking that line.
and made the change here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that we might.
Oh.
And we can't
We
make a
can't
motion
just
to
change it here
revise
and then
it?
okay it?
This is what was contained within the packet
Gotcha.
as written. And so what we need to come up with is what is for all intents and purposes a final draft of this thing before we come back.
So I would like to amend my motion to table, the action, to approve the revision of the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 31, City Officers and Employees, until the next meeting, to include the revisions that we discussed about at the city council meeting, today, October 18, 2021.
Okay, I'll second.
And then what we can do is, if there's no additional changes that anyone speaks of, then Jared can just present this for a final approval.
Right.
Without the need for any
Yeah,
additional
final
discussion.
approval.
Yeah.
Consent item.
Now, I'm
Yes.
noticing on my paperwork, the very last page, it's now D, it is under general duties still, I guess it's for the administrator. And we are at, I guess they renumbered it to D, procurement.
Mhm.
I have purchase of all materials, supplies, equipment, and services was penciled in on mine.
Yeah, it was changed.
Oh, okay,
I
it's
just
on
checked
this
it.
one, it's not on this one, okay. And I didn't know.
So that would, after that discussion last council meeting, I went back and looked at it. Our purchasing policy does allow for the purchasing of services up to different dollar thresholds other than materials, supplies, and equipment. For an example, right now, it makes an exception for professional services, could be expenses up to 25,000. So that might, I don't-
In a separate ordinance?
it's in the purchasing policy of the city, our financial policy of the city. However, we've often commonly operated under this and services rule. So I'm okay if we include services in this language. We just, at that point, need to make a change in our purchasing policy. It would,
Good thing.
yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And to your point, Councilman Villalobos, I think that it is practically speaking a simpler thing for this council or any council to gut the policies. I mean, if someone wants to know what the city's policies are, they should look at the Code of Ordinances. That should be the primary, if really not the sole place that people go to see what the city's policies are. And then to have an additional, very lengthy and voluminous
It is
policy.
an ordinance, right?
This is an ordinance, that's right. So what I'm saying is, I think what Jared was saying, what Councilman Villalobos was saying is that there's no need for an exceptionally lengthy policy manual. If you want to set standards and rules,
It's all.
get it in the Code of Ordinances so people know what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Other than things like Jared mentioned, which is vacation time, vacation schedule,
Yeah.
general database.
So if the point being, if this ordinance goes forward with the and services included, it would, the purchasing policy would change to reflect the ordinance, because the ordinance would control.
So you need to change the policy.
If this,
You don't need to change the policy. If you have an ordinance that says one thing and a policy that says the other, the ordinance will always control. And
Yeah,
the-
but you kind of want to do that.
You do, which is why it's a good idea with a small city to not have a policy this thick and ordinances this thick, because you're gonna create opportunity for confusion, instead of simply having everything in one place as much as possible.
So really, in essence, if we, do the ordinance the way it is, we don't even need the policy. The policy.
the
That's for
purchasing,
something.
the purchasing policy is often required for grants, especially federal grants. They wanted to see specific language that reflects the Code of Federal Regulations regarding hub zone businesses, small business enterprises, and that you're following their procurement rules. And so we kind of so we don't clog up our ordinances with a bunch of code of federal regulations. It's in a purchasing policy. It also describes our chart of accounts and how we manage funds and bank accounts. And how we go through the bid process for certain dollar thresholds. The point I'm making here is when it comes to services, there is a dollar threshold that's higher than the $3,000 dollar threshold that has mayor, city administrator has a purchasing power up to $25,000 for things like engineering services and things. That's not how we've, since I've been here, have operated. I always like the flexibility, but I think just to make sure that we're using common purchasing processes for both equipment, supplies, and services, I think it makes a lot of sense to standardize that across the board. Cut a number, snap a line, and say that's it. When we do that, that's section regarding service contracting in the city would just need to be changed to reflect the change in ordinance. If this was made. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this item. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, the motion carries. And we'll move on to 7B.
All right, 7B, this is a very rough draft start of a resolution relating to the wastewater. So to quickly recap where we've been, I've included it here in the recitals. On September of 2019, the city council at that time passed a resolution that encouraged TCEQ, surrounding governmental entities, others who are interested, developers, to design their wastewater treatment plants to meet a minimum discharge limit that would set us up for a 5.521, as it's often called, 5 milligrams per liter of biochemical oxygen demand, 5 milligrams per liter of total suspended solids, 2 milligrams per liter of ammonia and nitrogen, 1 milligram per liter of phosphorus, hence the 5.521. What that relates to, as we heard from our chair of our river advisory board speak to last week, and she's in the audience, probably wants to be recognized to talk about this probably better than I, relates to the water quality of the tributaries and river. So what this is kind of setting up is having this council reaffirm that prior resolution. I know that there's a proposal out there of maybe changing the 1 milligram per liter phosphorus to a 0.5 milligram per liter phosphorus. I think that's a point of discussion for tonight, the council members. 0.5. And it's point of discussion. Also, we could tailor this resolution specifically to the permit application that we received and say we specifically are against this one. So this is just a framework for discussion. I don't think we'll be in a position to pass or approve anything tonight.
And I did ask Joy to come and speak to us. All right.
I just want to make a comment that those limits right there should be milligrams per milliliter, not per liter.
Oh, that's a big difference. Okay.
So yeah, in July of 2019, the Martindale River Advisory Committee had requested the city of Martindale pass a resolution whereby any wastewater treatment plant discharging into any tributary of the San Marcos River adhere to those limits of 5.521. And this past July, the River Advisory Committee had upped, or rather down, those limits to 5.520.5. The Walton, Texas wastewater treatment plant permit specifies up to 420,000 gallons per day with an effluent level of 10, 15, 3, with no specified phosphorus amount, which is concerning in itself. If wastewater treatment, if wastewater is not properly treated, then the environment and human health can be negatively impacts can include harm to aquatic and wildlife populations, oxygen depletion, restrictions on recreational water use, restrictions on fish harvesting, and contamination of our drinking water or the drinking water of people downstream. For example, decaying organic matter and debris can use up the dissolved oxygen so that fish and plants can't survive. Excessive nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen can be toxic to aquatic species, promote excessive algae growth, reduce available oxygen, harm spawning beds, etc. Chlorine compounds and chloramines can be toxic to aquatic species and potentially cause cancer in humans. Bacteria, viruses, disease-causing pathogens can lead to restrictions on recreation, restrictions on drinking water consumption. Metals such as mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic can have an acute or chronic toxic effects on species, including humans. Other substances such as pharmaceuticals and chemicals entering the environment and wastewater effluents can also cause threats to human health, aquatic life, and wildlife. Now, Martindale and the people of Martindale have 30 days after permit publication to submit comments or requests for a public meeting. As of 9:30 this morning, the Walton, Texas have submitted proof of their publications to TCEQ. On September 30th, they published a Spanish permit in the Statesman. On October 4th, they published a English version
On the newspaper.
in the paper.
Okay, so we as a city, to be a party in a contested case, we have 30 days, correct?
From those dates,
From
meaning,
those dates.
right,
So we need to get on it ASAP.
To deny the application.
Okay, so
to request,
a hearing,
a public meeting.
yes.
And then from there, you would go to a contested hearing.
But we as a city need to be a party.
Yes.
Because we're the only one, Mr. Bud, help me here. I think we are the only one that can do this because the discharge will be over a mile from the river.
And I would encourage Hoppy Haven and the Commissioner's Court to also pass some kind of resolution in support of Martindale. And to that end, or not the Commissioner's Court, but to the Martindale public, they want to submit something, I've kind of made it easy for them to just fill this form out.
So we got two issues here. We're gonna have a public hearing about this. We need to have that's TCQ. Have a public hearing.
We need to request it first.
I request it. But we as a city needs to be a party, so we need to do the paperwork.
All right, so I think we're exceeding the scope of the discussion and action because the only discussion is a resolution on water discharge permit, the applicable permit number. But I don't think we can venture into a discussion tonight about what action we may or may take as an intervenor in a matter before the PG.
If the city chooses, as city manager and the mayor chooses, do they need city council approval? With this resolution, it looks like they can, like they can do whatever. We're going to put the request in without city council approval.
I don't think that this is something under this, and the reason I say this is because we're creating a public record here.
Yeah.
There is nothing on this agenda that is germane to us taking action in regards to
Okay.
this.
So we need to table it.
No, the city can do whatever it wants to do on a resolution.
But
Okay, I got you, but as far as the being a party in a contested case,
Yeah, we don't need to have that discussion because it's not part of the agenda.
okay.
Do we need to change the per liter to per milliliter on this recital though? Because we've been informed that the wording on that is wrong. So we don't want to submit that because then that would be the wrong
Well, wait a minute.
analysis.
This has already been, have we made any changes to the
But we need to now, if what she's informing us of, that it says 5 milligrams per liter, but it's actually per milliliter, right?
So we,
So it's wrong. This recital, the wording on it is wrong.
But like, right now, can, our city administrator just strike through that, add the revision in red, and then we approve it?
Since it's not taking any formal, we are not creating a binding law for the city. This is just an expression of the city's interest. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So we can do that right now.
so this, just so you, if that is something we probably really want to clear up, because our initial resolution in 2019 mentioned a per liter instead of per milliliter.
And it's signed, it's like a resolution that's signed, and so we would have to amend it and
we're
then
correcting it.
correct
So
it.
what we can do is, if we want, we can basically take the language straight from this, make the correction on the liter to milliliter, make the adjustment on the phosphorus levels, and that could basically be the extent of the resolution that we consider for tonight.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to add, or I wanted to ask my fellow council members on what do you feel about the 0.5? Going ahead and adding that in there as well. Since we're gonna make the revision, do y'all feel like, I feel like we should go ahead and do it?
I agree. We're gonna change it. Yeah, that's what they're going to now. That's a newer standard.
What are, we don't have to worry about it as a city because we are, we don't.
No, but we still want it reflected in our resolution.
Yes.
Did you have anything else, Joy, from what you were reading? Did you complete your
This-
information to us, all that you were gonna tell us in regards to that?
I know that Senator Zeffirini has made progress to getting a public meeting together as well, and, yeah, that's really all.
Bud, can we talk about, I mean, this is very important about us being a party. So do we need to, and this, we got less than a month.
Future
We
agenda item.
can discuss it. We put that on the future.
We cannot,
And we need to put that as our next city council. I'll put that as
So
a.
when is the next river advisory meeting?
This Thursday, and at that time, we could get a recommendation for the city to do.
We could always hold a meeting next week to
Yeah.
address this
We'll do
issue.
a special meeting. We talked about that when we discussed.
I mean, and then like whenever we have it, maybe we could have it after the river committee has their meeting, or right after, or,
Well, we can discuss that at future.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only urgency I have, we have less,
Let's get through this.
we have less than a month to be a party. That's my concern. So, okay. We can do that.
And you're meeting next Thursday? did
This
we-
coming Thursday, 2 days from now.
Okay.
So that's the October meeting you'll have before the month's deadline of the request for the public meeting. I mean, the meeting you're gonna have on Thursday is before any information that you need to submit. You'll have all that available for the public meeting that needs to be happening a month.
We'll have a resolution for you.
Okay.
Well, TCQ will have a meeting. The meeting,
I'm not sure, a public meeting?
yes, they'll have the meeting, the public meeting.
Well, that's certainly.
That's how it usually works. It's a public meeting.
Right, yes, but
So you do the resolution and then.
Yeah, you won't be having another river meeting before the month's time in
No.
which the request for the meeting from TCEQ needs to happen.
that's correct.
So we need to make those resolutions for you before Thursday, or from what we're talking about now, you will make a resolution?
Our committee will make a resolution to present to the city at your
Okay.
special
Okay,
meeting
good.
or your next scheduled meeting, whichever comes first.
Like Sonia said, can we just make changes right now and vote on it? Just those
Yes.
two? Those two? That one, the misspelled, the
Yes,
liter, and then change it to
milliliter and
0.5 right now, change it right now. Save us time.
Well, I'd like to make a motion. Do I have to make a motion that we change it or make a motion that we accept the changes?
Well, I think it's going to be a fully new resolution.
Yes.
And so in the recitals, we're
Let me-
we're looking to amend to add clarity and set new standards for phosphorus, right?
Well, also the
Uh,
milliliter liter thing,
Here, we'll take this off.
so we're having to
So we
change
have
all
to
of those.
change, so we need to make a motion to change the 5 milligrams per liter of biochemical oxygen demand to 5 milligrams per milliliter of biochemical oxygen demand. And the 1 milligrams per liter of phosphorus to 0.5 milligrams per liter of phosphorus.
Does that sound right?
Just make-
Per milliliter.
Per milliliter. Yes, like
Yeah.
On
I said for-
all of them.
all of them.
I said,
All of them. All four,
all
all
four.
four of them. Yes.
No, one of them is milligrams per liter. Oh, per milliliter. Oh, I see.
See, they're all
I
liter,
see,
liter,
okay.
liter,
They
liter.
changed the
I see,
milliliter, and then we
liter
changed the
there,
last one to
and liter
0.5.
there.
I'll have something up on the screen here in a second.
There,
Can we do that?
per milliliter. Okay, I have to read the whole thing and change.
Or we'll just see it by the time he corrects it.
Oh, yeah,
Have they been notified?
that I don't know.
It'll probably be in the public. I don't know.
Yeah, we need public.
Well, I will have to, well, I can't talk anymore, I get in trouble. So,
We'll let you adjourn.
You need.
oh, they'll have a public hearing.
What's the public hearing for?
Well, the public meeting will happen first, and then there's enough support for a hearing then.
Yes,
Go to a
right.
contested hearing.
Oh,
But the city has to request it.
No,
Well,
Everybody, I mean, as many,
that's an individual land, anybody. can request it.
Oh,
That's
really?
TCQ.
can we have that?
I can send you digital copies.
Oh, that's all right. We have a photo machine.
All right.
oh, I see. This is different than this one. This is
I mean,
the
if you-
original.
What the paper that you have in your hand is an initial draft that I provided to spur conversation, and get ideas.
Oh.
What I've revised it is to, the recitals, whereas the city council of the city of Martindale passed and approved a resolution supporting the efforts to protect the San Marcos River by limiting discharge limits for new wastewater treatment facilities on September 10th, 2019. And whereas, and whereas the city council of the city of Martindale seeks to amend the previous discharge limits to clarify the units of measurement. And whereas the city council of the city of Martindale seeks to modify the discharge limits for phosphorus to improve the safety and quality of water within the San Marcos River. Now therefore be it resolved, the city council and city of Martindale encourages the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ, surrounding governmental entities, developers, and persons or organizations creating new wastewater treatment plants to design their wastewater treatment plants to meet the following minimum discharge limits or more stringent discharge limits if they exist. 5 milligrams per milliliter of biochemical oxygen demand, 5 milligrams per milliliter of total suspended solids, 2 milligrams per milliliter of ammonium nitrogen, 1/2 milligrams per milliliter of phosphorus. I think that That
Clarifies it.
The-
clarifies the,
Yeah.
the discussion
that
tonight.
sounds good.
Sounds good. Looks good.
What do you think? Would you change anything?
Meeting's
about
to be over.
That is actually phosphate technically, so,
phosphate, not phosphorus.
no, you want phosphorus.
Is the symbology wrong? Is it gonna be a 3 instead of a 4?
It should be P2.
P2. Would it be better to leave the
You know
description
what? Yeah, just
off?
leave it off.
Let me do that with the same, with the rest.
I bet most of us didn't know what that meant anyway.
Okay, if my motion, well, if nobody okayed it, I rescind it. 'Cause I didn't say it.
And Lisa Allen did join us.
So are you gonna make a new motion?
Why should you do it?
Okay, so I make a motion to accept the resolution on the wastewater discharge permit as presented with the revisions.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
I'd
Now,
like
do we
to
need to
talk
take,
to the board.
do we, Sylvia, do we need to take an individual vote on this one?
It would be best, just,
Okay, so Mike seconded it, so he's a yes. Jan, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Sonia made the motion, so she's yes. Sam, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 4 votes yes.
I think
And
Lisa joined
Lisa.
us.
I just saw Lisa up there.
Lisa, are you ready to vote?
Sure.
Okay, so the motion carries.
Yes, I could not unmute myself. So yes, I vote yes as well.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Yes,
Lisa, what
ma'am.
time did you join us? Do you know?
It was probably 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the discussion only items. 8A is the LCRA Community Development Partnership Program, and Sonia is gonna talk about that.
And so I explained a little bit about this grant. It's from the LCRA. It opens up in January. I would like for our city to go ahead and consider moving forward with applying for the grant. As I stated, I would be willing to spearhead the effort as far as filling out all documentation with community members. The community of Round Top received a $19,848 grant from the Lower Colorado River Authority and Bluebonnet Electric. And it allowed their city to install energy efficient outdoor lighting on its historic town and the public square that's surrounded. The Community Development Partnership Program, along with $7,000 in matching funds. So there would be some amount that would have to come from the city if we were awarded the grant. They were awarded the 19,000, Round Top had to give 7,000. And it paid for vintage style fixtures that would house LED bulbs. And 4 of the fixtures were placed above the town hall, or, it could be along the street. And the best thing about them is that they were like mid 1920 style, so they would be a vintage style. And I think the best thing about it for our community is, we're a dark sky friendly community. These lights would be in compliance with our resolution that we have, and we made as a commitment as a community to protect our dark skies. So yeah, like I said, I'm open, it's open for discussion if anybody would like to talk about it or, yes.
Are these yearly grants that they kind of offer to different, I guess it depends on the population of the town on what grants they have available?
Yes.
Okay. And is this a grant that they offer every year having to do specifically with lighting?
It does, it
Okay.
only, yes, it only, happens, once a year that the grant, opens up. I mean, we might not even receive it, we might not even get it, but I think like, it's worth a shot to, I know it was eight light fixtures that they installed, but it enhanced, their community downtown with the vintage lighting.
Do you think that would include the water company? You think they would be privy? And I know they need lighting for people at night to drop off their bills and everything, but.
Well,
you need that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we as a city, we would have a say-so, like where we would want the light fixtures, where we would, but like me, whenever I envision, Martindale and the light fixtures, of course, like our downtown is,
Right.
kind of like our main area, but if we wanted them throughout wherever, I'm sure we could consider
What
that.
about
as a-
streetlights?
I mean, the
Would
street,
it include streetlights?
I think that's kind of like the vintage style lighting.
Yeah,
It is
that
kind
they're
of
talking
street
about.
lights, yes, but they're just like vintage style
Yes.
and dark sky compliant.
Yeah.
I think since we're in a historical district as it is, if, say if we wanted to do this, with our matching grant, say if we got the grant, then if we wanted to do more street lights in another community also, we could also, well, in another neighborhood, we could also do that.
All right, now, they had to put up what, a certain percentage of what the grant called for as far as, yeah, I'm sure you have to specify what you want to use the grant for and how much it's gonna cost.
Yes.
So, what's my point? Oh, but then we had to put up a certain percentage of that.
Yes, so I
So,
like to use, I think that the comparison, although it's Round Top and we're Martindale, I know that it's not exactly apples to apples, but I think, with it saying that they were able to install 8 light fixtures, we have a fairly small, downtown. The lights would all be
Wouldn't be as much,
matching,
but-
yeah, and it would kind of enhance the beauty that we already have, downtown, keeping its historical charm.
Sounds good to me.
Sonia, would there be a way of you to reach out to Round Top or Blue Bonnet and get an actual photograph of these light fixtures? Because I'm sure that the historic committee would want to look at those and review those as well to make sure that they
Oh, yes,
accept
sir.
them.
I would be working along with community members, along with the historical committee. But my first thing for me to get the okay is to come to council first to say, Mother, may I? Can I do it?
Sure. If you need help, holler at me.
All right. Thank you.
I'm okay with it.
Thank
Anybody- We don't have to vote on it, right?
Well, we've got it under discussion only.
So what I'll do, that gives me like the next time I come, I'll be able to, since January is coming up, I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling. I already have like the documents that I need. I already have the application printed. I already have like, everything that I need to put into place. So next time I can present pictures and do all that and get with the historical committee.
Other grants. Do we have it in the budget? Well, I guess it depends on how much you come up with. Okay.
Okay, thank y'all.
Okay, so the next one is a T-Mobile grant opportunity. Beth Schreibner has worked with the fire department a lot, has gotten quite a few grants for the fire department. And so I met with her last Saturday and Richard Salmon. And she was suggesting this T-Mobile grant. There is no matching for this one. We talked about a number of grants, but this one looked pretty promising. it's to bring people together. So like, you have to come up, she put ideas on here because you have to come up with a solid plan of what you want to do, of what would be, it could cost, I mean, they might award up to $50,000. It depends on your project. But say we wanted to use phase 3 and clear it off and make it into some trails and a dog park or something like that, that would bring people together and out and about and walking. That would be one idea that would work. So there's a bunch of ideas on here, but we would have to come up with a good solid plan before we could present it to them. So it would depend on what the needs of the community are and what we would like to see happen. One of the questions that I asked her about was, is there a grant out there for possibly doing a sidewalk that would connect all of the parks from the bridge to downtown? Because, you know, we're gonna have to look at where are we gonna park. Phase 3 is also another idea for parking. There's just a lot of planning to do, to work with the Parks Department and citizens. So this is done quarterly. So if we came up with something before January and submitted it, you know, we might be in the running, but if we don't, by then it would be March. So it's just an idea.
Okay.
So the one for the sidewalk, she said that would be Texas Parks and Wildlife, that we'd have to go after a grant from them, and that they would possibly help us do a sidewalk. Because that was something I was really interested in. Are there any questions about that? So is that something we want to go forward with and think about?
Sure, definitely.
Especially since there's no money that.
No matching funds on this one. Okay. Okay, so 8C is late fees on payments received after 4:30 on the due date. So we wanted to discuss that. Sonia, you want to start?
So the reason why I asked for this to be on an agenda item is that a community member approached me and came in after she had gotten paid, and it was after 4:30, and she was charged her late fee. I just feel like if it's on the same day, people are working, not everybody could be here after 4:30. I think if it's on the same day, that the late fees should be waived.
That sounds good to me. You know, the IRS does that to you. You know, you can send your taxes in, as long as it's postmarked by midnight, you're covered. I totally agree. I tapped it in a couple of times. Yeah, I totally agree.
So, I mean, you know, for me, it was just like, speaking to this community member, I mean, like, to some people, that amount might not be a lot, but for people that are, you know, are on fixed incomes or waiting to get off of work and waiting, you know, to come in and pay their bill, it's just like, you know, as long as they get it here on time, on the due date, if it's, I don't see why if it's after 4:30, there has to be a late
Yeah,
fee.
why is there a specific time? Is that what's on?
That's what it is right now.
That's,
If it's past 4:30.
so, okay, so it's
I think so they can close out the books that
It's because we
That's,
close it down.
before we close
We
everything.
close down.
Gotcha.
But what if people drop their payment in the payment box after 5 o'clock, say
And
between
it's the
5
same
and midnight,
day.
that's still the same day?
Yeah,
Are we gonna expand it till 12 midnight of that day then?
And they could catch it in the morning, first thing in the morning, they could get to check the box. Probably, you know, they could check.
They just,
Because you're closed at, so you close at 5, right?
Mhm.
You're trying to close out for the day,
They
You
close
have to
out
run
for
the
day at
deposit.
4:30.
for the deposit, you deposit that same day.
we'd create the deposit the
Create
same
the
day.
deposit that,
and
Rate
that
deposit,
evening,
but the
that-
deposit's the next
and
day.
how critical is that, and
Well, hey, that's right, good
5
question.
o'clock.
How critical is it? We'll invest you guys.
But I mean, it makes you think that even though if it's for a deposit, I mean, are you charging, is it like an inconvenience fee?
Yeah.
Because you're coming in after 4:30? Is it because you're having to pay the, which I understand, people have to get paid, but it's still on the same day.
But they gotta figure out which ones to waive and which ones not to waive.
So-
Like,
So the business rule would be that if someone comes in at 4:59, as long as it's before 5 o'clock, the doors are still open, as long as they make the doors, there's no late fee.
I
So-
think that
so-
would be good.
But would it be inconvenience if you said if it's in the box?
The box, we can't, I mean,
If they hypothetically come at 6 in the morning and, I mean,
yeah,
maybe that's what.
it's not time stamped.
This isn't like US mail.
It's not
Yeah.
stamped.
But then like, that's even for our online payments, if somebody pays it online, at 11:59 that night, whenever, they're,
That's-
if they're gonna pay it, online, I mean,
They're trying to get it on time. It seems like it, if they're gonna pay it at 11:59. So, I don't know, I mean.
I think if you can find a way to show that the payment is in fact made on the due date, be it a time-stamped online payment or receipt at the office, you just can't create this ambiguous standard where someone could hypothetically get it in after the due date, but then not get the late fee. But I think if you have it set up where you make the payment online before midnight and you can show that the payment was actually made on the due date, then.
yeah, we have a process for people to dispute charges on their bill. If someone was assessed a late fee, they can dispute it. We could take it into, we could review what they have, the receipts and timestamps and things like that for an online payment. In person, I think it's a simple administrative change. What we might have to do, I'm not sure, Dwayne, if this would impact you, but if we take that payment, it might not be on that day's, end of day report, but we take it, put it in the safe, process it the next morning, and it gets included on the next day's report, or is that going to cause issues?
As far as my process, I have to account for everything the day that it goes to the bank.
Yeah.
And we've got people, they don't really close out and tabulate that deposit until the next morning, isn't that right?
No, they should close, they tabulate everything that night.
They do it that night, so, as long as what hits the bank.
So when does the deposit made that day? Y'all make a deposit?
No, I don't take it till the next morning.
The next morning.
But deposit's already made, yeah.
Well, you can't make a new deposit for any.
No.
Well, it goes in a sealed bag, right?
From 5 and then.
No, we don't seal
It's
them.
not built for you.
But another issue that has come up is that we've had a couple of times where someone says that they did pay it, the date on my check is this, but actually the check has the date, but it doesn't come in like 2 days.
Oh, I can
They
understand.
drop it
I
off,
understand.
they drop it off 2 days later.
Oh, yeah. I can-
And then, and then we
Well,
have
that's
to
not
give
proof
them.
to me.
What I'm saying.
Well, no, but it is proof. If they come in today and it was due last week and they come in today, they give you, them in, they put it in the box that day. It wasn't there yesterday or the day before, but yet the date on the check says the due date, and then they come and they,
I think
It's not
just
in
to,
your hand.
I've gotten some of those, so I'm just letting you know the
Yeah.
issues.
Let me get clarification here. So typically, first thing in the morning, y'all go check your box.
Mhm.
I don't see a problem. If you go out there and you check your box and it's in there, you're gonna take it to the bank anyway. Now, if somebody comes in and you've taken it out of that box, it's too late, the next day. If it's y'all 8 o'clock, y'all come in, whoever first
9
thing.
o'clock, yeah.
So if that box is cleared at 9 o'clock, it's done. Because you're gonna take it to the bank anyway.
That following day.
You're saying at 9 o'clock, it's just as good as yesterday.
Yes, exactly. I mean, as long as you're starting
Even though
posing,
they-
as long as
even
it's
though
starting
they brought
posing.
it up, even though they brought it in at 8:30
Yeah,
that morning, this.
Well, no, that you have to say, you have, as long, when that box gets emptied that next day, it's done. I mean, you charge them a late fee, but if they took the night before and you're still gonna deposit that check, I don't see you
What do you
call.
think? What do you think?
We got a chat from Lisa. When I was prior discussion, but the cutoff should be at closing, not 30 minutes before. When you pay after 5 on the due date, there's not a late fee to my knowledge. Someone drops a check in the box after 5 and they take a picture and email it, date, timestamp it, would that work?
Well, how we gonna get it?
I mean, it,
You're gonna have to.
We're over,
Unless it
We're
gets-
only talking
we're
about a half
overcomplicating
hour.
this way too much.
Yeah.
You know, if you got the box out
And
there.
what's the late
Let
fee?
me finish, Jane. You've got the box out there, if they put it in at midnight or 10 o'clock the day before, as long as you check the box in the morning, as long as that check's in there and you're going to the bank anyway, what difference is it?
The thing that that causes me the most trouble is if you cut credit cards off at 5 o'clock and people keep making them all night.
Okay, that agrees.
It's like, I really think we gotta keep credit cards up.
I agree.
Because that is what causes it to really get
Okay.
confusing.
I totally agree with you. Credit card, I totally agree, but a Dropbox, what do you think?
I mean, I'm just trying to like say like, you know, I just don't think that charging someone a late fee after 4:30 is
You
a
just wanna
good,
change it
good
to
practice.
With a credit card, I can see the issue, because he's here. But at the closing, as long as they inspect it specifically for that Dropbox on. How about that?
And I could tell you like credit card, because, I mean, we're not the best, I mean, I could speak about it because, you know, our bills are sometimes late, we don't pay exactly on time. I'm a part of the late charge club, but, you know, we try, but this genuinely was brought up with a citizen that, you know, that money that she came in that same day and she was just really upset by it and.
Well, it feels
Yeah.
like a punishment.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about it. Would that work for you
And
guys?
also, she probably
Would
could.
that work? Jerry, would that work for you?
what's that?
No credit card, just strictly the Dropbox. I mean, would that make it complicated for you guys, as long as you're making your deposit?
I think is if the timestamp is 11:59 and 59 seconds on the day of the due date and it's paid online, I think that's acceptable. I'm open to allowing someone to drop it off that evening, and as long as it's before the start of the next business day,
Good, no, there you go.
then
I agree
the
with
magic
that.
word.
I agree with that. That sounds perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Gotta see.
before the start of the next business day.
That's perfect.
If they're going to the trouble to make a payment,
Yeah.
I think that's
Perfect,
good.
I agree.
Okay. High fives all around.
We work with the staff to make sure that everybody's working off that same.
So that's.
We'll do it
just a
tomorrow.
company problem.
Yeah, that's something that's like, it's not in our ordinances or anything. No. The only thing where it gets weird on time in our ordinance is when it has to do with water shutoffs and turn-ons.
Right.
If someone comes in and asks their water to be turned on at 5 o'clock, they're turned back on if they were shut off. The water supply it's an extra charge because the water supply corporation has extra charge for
Correct.
evening, weekend
I
service.
agree with that.
That's not.
That's different.
Okay.
That's a different department.
Different issue.
We're
Different
just
issue.
talking about
Different issue.
payment.
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, you got to go down the street and combine.
Okay, so we'll move on to future items. We have a list there. Does anybody have anything to add?
What was that one thing that we needed to about,
The resolution?
yes, about, we might have to okay it before we can do a public,
I think we
to
already
request
passed
a
that.
No, I think
No, we didn't.
we passed the resolution
Oh.
that
What we-
updated
Yeah, but we didn't.
the thresholds. I think the mayor and I can submit the letter to request the public meeting without
Oh,
a
okay.
city council action.
What we need to do, we got a little over 2 weeks before there will be a party in the case. So we need to have a meeting about that, because the clock is ticking.
I'll talk with Kent about this party in the case issue and advise the mayor on whether we need to set up a special meeting. I'm not sure if now is the time that we request that. We'll check the administrative procedures.
So no special meeting needed.
We've only got two.
There might be.
We got a
We'll,
little over 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
the mayor and I and the city attorney will look into the procedures and make sure we're
Okay.
getting a contested case in the appropriate time, submitting that at the appropriate time. I think at the,
You've only got a little over 2 weeks to be a party. That's all I'm saying. However y'all want to do it, the time, the clock is ticking.
I think the three of us can look at.
Okay.
I think can we take off number 5, because it hasn't been handled already? So we could take
Legal restitution board.
Yeah, for last fiscal year.
Legal restitution board.
We have to ask the judge about the warrant and, oh, I thought we took off the billboard.
No, we haven't talked about that again.
Okay, we talked about the legal.
That was with the restitution for the.
Oh,
For the what?
Right?
yes,
For the what?
hold on.
Do we still need to do that legal restitution? Do we-
You talking about for Lynette?
Yes.
All right, I need to, my memory needs to be
And-
refreshed.
Real quick. She's paid $920.
Oh.
She's paid $920 restitution. It has been requested by the DA's office that she be set for a review in front of the court. She will be brought in and there will be discussion about restitution and 920. So there you go.
That's the accountant.
Yeah.
No, yeah, the bookkeeper, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, it looks like we have enough for the next meeting. And I just want to add the dilapidated house ordinance and the abandoned vehicle.
Do you want to update and modify the ordinance, or do you want a status?
Status.
Yeah, I mean, I think we used the mechanism under the state law before. I think that's sufficient. So if there's a dilapidated house issue that needs to be addressed, then I think what we need to do is handle it within, Jared Mayor and I can handle it. We can get something set up to inspect, take a look at it, and take any action that needs to be taken, but
There's one that you're specifically concerned about, send me an email.
Okay.
yeah. and then
So
we can get there.
dilapidated houses, and what was the other thing?
The abandoned vehicles or vehicles that are up on cinder blocks or not registered that are sitting in yards.
What I would say, send a mayor over, or send an email over to the mayor, not a mayor over to the email.
Yeah.
And we
Jared-
have addressed some of those.
Okay.
Yeah,
Some
and that
have.
they can instruct that people.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think you got,
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
you got 3 minutes.
I don't know how to address the mayor and all y'all,
Yeah.
but this is the land down here, no word. And it belongs to my mother. There's a trailer house on it now. There's no deed to this. There's a deed to this gravel pit, and then across the street, my mother paid for it. There's no deeds. This goes back, my uncle lived on that place for like 60 years. We never got a tax form, never got nothing. And, anyway, I can't get the deeds. Cause Martindale give the land to Lockhart to put in a public playground. That's about 7 years ago, and they haven't put in a public playground on the land yet. That's my land. I'm the only living heir left. All my brothers are dead. And this land right here, there's a mobile home, it's one of them big fancy ones. And that's the prettiest spot on the river and on the flat ground they are. And then they said, this is my mother's, and Lockhart and Martindale give that land away. They were 3 houses, 2 of them pretty good. Okay, they go down there and they bulldoze the 2 good ones, leave the old shack there. But they took the brick and the red rock that my mother paid so much to square to give them to my uncle. It was 40 foot long, 16 foot tall, and a red rock down there. And they pushed all that in a gravel pit. And the other old house ain't worth nothing. It's all the pieces, the roof's falling and everything. But they tore down the 2 damn good. I'm sorry, I get excited. Okay. That man right there, he sent me a fax. He told me to sign my name and print my name. Okay. I wrote, had the secretary at the department write every day after October 21st, you pay $500 a day more till we get to these. He promised me $40,000, $40,000 3 months ago, or almost 4 months. And this, I took to the district attorney, I gotta go back to get a police report. My name, and on the other sheet of paper, they put it with, you know, how they got these computers. I've never seen this in my life. He forged it. That's my land. I want the trailer moved. I don't want them parking down there. It's mine. And if y'all want to buy it for 40,000, I'll take it. I said that was a fair price. But he does all the talking. I waited 2 hours, week before last, till he could get there, and he didn't let the deed people talk. He done all the darn talking. And today he's done all the talking. I've been to the hospital. They almost gave me a heart attack over it today. I pulled in front of the trailer and told them they wasn't moving that damn trailer. I'm sorry. I cussed. I'm old. I'm 84 years old. And y'all are, I'm not saying y'all are all nice people, except him.
We understand.
Okay, I want the deeds to these properties where a Spanish man offered me 10,000 to that and may not even push the brush. And he'd push the house and everything. He said that he'd give me $40,000 for the 3 pieces of land. And that's been almost 4 months ago.
You know what? I'm so glad that you brought this to our attention. And I want to tell you that we're going to look into all the information that you've given
I've
to
got
us.
all the information right out there, every deed, everything that the trust company's got. I got it, I'll bring it in here and give it to you.
Yeah, we'll have to do that during business hours. Can you do that tomorrow?
I'm not a cook.
No.
I'm dirty.
I am
I'm
too.
already on the counter.
I'm working.
You look
I-
fine, sir.
They were gonna put me in jail and finally I'm claustrophobic. I didn't want to be strapped down.
They're not gonna
Okay.
put you in jail.
Now, hell, ma'am, they had about 8 carloads of cops and sheriffs
Okay,
down
sir.
here. Cause I parked on my own land.
All right, can we
And they
close
took
this
my
meeting?
dog.
We're gonna have to close the meeting and
Ma'am,
then
Yeah.
we'll close the meeting
And
and
then
then we
we'll-
can get your papers.
Uh-huh.
okay.
Okay, if you can have a seat.
Okay, I sure will.
Okay, we'll give them in just a little bit.
The same mayor or your honor, I got like.
That's
they're
okay.
bad
Okay.
If you can have a seat.
All right, I
Okay.
make a motion that we adjourn the meeting, the city council meeting at
At 8:22.
Thank you. I'm fixed.
Second?
Who's gonna second it?
I'll second.
I know your word.
I took my dog's all I got.
All in favor, please say aye.
And-
Okay, the motion carries.
That man drove around that guy there.